Natalie with the Fifth Journey, and we're going to do the next segment of foundation. So today we're going to talk all about Tendu. Tendu means to stretch, and there are different ways of doing this, but I'm going to show you what I find works the best for the most students and the purpose of the Tendu at the bar, because everything, like I've said before, everything that we do at the bar does have a purpose for doing things in center and in performances across the floor. So everything we do here has a purpose. Now a Tendu, for me, is an outward motion to teach the leg to go out. And I'll talk about dégagés next time, but how I teach it is tendus are the action of taking the leg out, dégagés are the action of taking the leg in. That way, when I am teaching a class or even on myself, each one has a separate purpose, and it's training muscles in a different way versus doing the same thing. So when I'm doing a tendu, if I'm counting, I want the accent of a tendu to be out. So on the count, I want it to be out as long as possible and out versus a dégagé where I want it to be in, because I'm training those muscles to pull in for leaps and that sort of thing. Battements, anything where the leg is out to squeeze those muscles back in, but we'll talk about dégagés later. Anyway, with the tendu, your battement, rond de jambe, anything lifting, anything moving with that leg begins with that tendu position. So we have a press through the leg out to that nice tendu position. Now, before we talk about the working leg, we're going to talk about your standing leg or your supporting leg. So we talked about that 4-step check. Let's go ahead and go to a nice first position. The weight is on the balls of our feet. Chin is lifted, neck is nice and long, chest is open, shoulders are down. The abdominals are working. We have our core, everything is stacked and square. My pelvis is neutral. It is not tucked under. It is not sticking back. And then we talked about in a previous one, make sure you're watching all of these. If you need to go back and listen to the ones, make sure you're doing that. And working on wrapping the seat around, not squeezing the butt. Now, with this leg, quadricep, we're going to talk about the quadriceps in another video, but I want you to think about lifting with the quadricep, not squeezing. You don't want to grip it, because if I grip my quadricep, it automatically hyperextends my knee, and it makes me actually less stable because I'm gripping everything there and I'm not working the other stabilizing muscles. So if you think about lifting with your kneecap, lifting up through the muscle, up through your hip flexor and up through your side, that is going to provide stability. So don't grip, but think about lifting. So I'm still using my quadricep, I'm still using my thigh muscles, but I'm not gripping them, because you need to have a solid base. Since now we're moving on, we've talked about turnout, we've talked about pliés, and we've talked about some other things, but now we're working on one leg. So my supporting leg is my foundation. You need to make sure you have a strong, solid foundation that is not hindering the movement of the rest of your body, okay? So lifting up, making sure you're on the ball of that foot. Your foot is equally turned out from your hip. Both of your hips are equally turned out, and they're even. So that's something I really want you to focus on when we are working on the one leg, that your hips stay even. You're not sitting into that supporting leg, and you're also not lifting the working hip up, okay? So lots of things to think about there. So lifting, everything is pulled out, but I'm still pressing into the floor. I'm pushing that energy through the ball of my foot, okay? Everything is nice and even. All right, the working leg. Tendus, unless you are doing an added-on exercise like a tendu that has those pliés in it, this working leg does not bend. So for a typical tendu exercise, neither one of your legs bend at all. If you can stand right here with both of your legs lifted, your knees straight, that is not going to change at all in your tendus. If you're in 3rd position, 5th position, everything is lifted up and everything is wrapped around. Your knees are straight here. They do not bend, especially as you pull your leg in. So if I see that your leg is bending, and I'm totally exaggerating here, even if it's a little bit, to me, that means you're not effectively working your tendu, and it also means you're not flexing your foot like you need to. So a lot of times dancers will pull it in, especially in 5th position, and there'll be just a little bit of a bobble in the knee. So as soon as I do that, I lose all of my form and I'm losing everything that I'm working on. So make sure that you're keeping that quadricep lifted, everything engaged, not pressing down, not squeezing, because I don't want to hyperextend and stop that leg from working, but make sure you're still lifting. All I need to do is let that foot relax and come in to that position, first, third, fifth, whatever I'm going to. Okay, so that is something you really, really need to watch out for on your leg, because everything in this is you're doing an active exercise. So make sure you're actively working on whatever combination you're doing, okay? All right, before I go back to that part, I want to talk a little bit about it's not necessarily turnout, but when you're in first position versus third position versus fifth position. So if I'm here, I'm evenly turned out, rotating from my hips, not my knees, not my feet. And if you remember, we talked about thinking about that barbershop pole or the candy canes where everything is here and we're thinking about wrapping it completely around, okay? So with that in mind, to get to your third position, I'm actually not changing my turnout. I'm not making my legs any more turned out, but the crossing over comes from your inner thighs. So if I go from first position to my third, I'm squeezing with my inner thighs. And to my fifth position, I'm going even more so over. Now with that, you have to still make sure that your hips are square. So if you find that you really want to get to fifth position, but maybe you're turning here and your hips end up facing to the corner, start back at third position. Work on that position first until you're very comfortable with it. You can feel those inner thighs working to get the leg where it needs to be, okay? Really quick, let's do a couple tendus just so you can feel that. A couple tendus to your second, not the side of the room, but to your second. Let's just we'll do 4 in first, then 4 in third, and then 4 in fifth. And I want you to really think about keeping those hips even, okay? You ready? So let's take our arm to second. 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 to third, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 to fifth. 1 and 2, 3. Are you ready? 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, go ahead and finish in first. Did you feel that? So the crossing comes from the inner thighs. It doesn't come from the hips and moving the hips towards that corner side, okay? So that's something to work on. Back to those tendus. With a tendu, depending on which way you're going, we're gonna go en croix, like a cross. En croix is front side, back side. You're going to lead with a different part of your foot. And when I'm going devant, we're going to talk about a few different things depending on which direction we are going to be going. So supporting that leg, we're going to go from first position. I want you to keep your hips evenly turned out. We're going to keep them nice and square. We're not going to drop down our hips. So as soon as this leg goes out, we're not going to sit into it, okay? Everything stays nice and lifted. Remember, it's lifting up through that supporting kneecap, okay? That's going to pull everything up. So our supporting leg is nice and strong and working. Our working leg, I want you to think about leading with your heel. A lot of times when we start doing tendus, we just automatically stick the foot out and then come back. There's nothing going on there, okay? There's no motion. What we need to do is lead with the heel to support that turnout. Now when I come back, I'm going to lead with the ball of my foot, lead with the toes. So going out, leading with the heel, and then coming back, leading with the toes. Now I'm not turning out any more than my body can naturally do, but just that thought of I'm going to lead with my heel and then lead with my toes, that keeps my leg turned out. So sometimes we get the first parts and then we have to bring the leg back in and then we end up turning the foot in and we end up in this position, okay? So to stay in that nice position, whether in first, third, or fifth, lead with the heel, come back in with the toe. One thing to think about, two things to think about actually, with the foot, you need to make sure you're working the floor with the foot, not gripping. So you need to make sure you're working on pushing when you need to push and releasing when you need to release. So as we go through our tendu, I'm going to press into the floor with the ball of my foot. Now, not rolling forward. If you can see that, I'm not rolling forward, But I'm thinking about keeping the whole entire ball of my foot on the ground as long as I can. Now I'm going to be pointing through my ankle. There's different parts of your foot that you point through. So I'm going to be pointing through my ankle. Now I'm going to be pointing through my arch, and the very last part is pointing through my toes. And then we reverse it. I'm going to be pressing my toes into the ground, pressing the ball of my foot into the ground, and then last, flexing that foot, allowing it to relax to come back in. So press the ball of your foot, press through your toes, reverse it, ball of your foot, relax the ankle in to come back to a first position. If you forget to relax the ankle right here, this is when that knee bends. So make sure you're working that ankle like you need to, okay? The second thing that happens, this part is usually pretty good. Actually, let me backtrack. So what happens here, not as often as what happens in the second part, but here is we think about I need to point, but I also need to press really hard so the toes come off the ground immediately. So I'm pressing, I don't know if you can see it, but my toes are up off the ground. And then they think, oh yeah, I have toes. So make sure that your ball of your foot and your toes are pressing to the ground, then we point. Now this part is something I see a lot. As we get here, and the toes stay scrunched. And then what happens is the arch scrunches. And we end up in this kind of position, if you can see that, where the toes and the arch and everything is scrunched in. So you're working on the ankle here, but you're forgetting about the rest of your foot. Lots of things to think about. Don't try to fix all these at once. Fix one or work on one and then work on the next part, okay? So pressing in to the ground, point, 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 pressing into the ground, and then coming in, nice straight knees and nice even hips, okay? Two visuals that work really well. Use them both or pick one. Think about you have a towel or a marble that you are moving, and actually this is a really great thing to do, a really good foot exercise, is you can put a washcloth or a small towel under the ball of your foot, and you can press it forward, and then you're going to pick up the towel, or visually think about marbles. You're going to be picking up the towel or the marbles in your toe, and then you're going to be pressing that back into the ground and then pulling it back. So that's another thing to think about. The second one is sand. Think you're on the beach and you're going to be pressing your feet through the sand. You're picking up sand with your toes, and then you're going to be pressing them down into the ground. I know I'm talking about this a lot, but that is so important because you're going to be using that in your dégagé, in your rond de jambe, in your battement, in your leaps, anytime that your foot comes off the ground, in your petit allegro. Anytime your foot comes off the ground, you need to go through those motions. So if you're doing a jump, sautés, you're still doing that motion of going all the way through the ball of your foot, grabbing with your toes, pressing your toes in the ground, the ball of your foot, and then working through the ankle, okay? So it's very important to work on. Going on to our second. So remember, I talked about this a bunch for the first one. You pick up your toes from that jazz first, ballet 6, drop them up, and that's your natural first position. Drawing a line from your heel through your toes, that is your natural second position, or your natural second, also going, anytime you're doing battements, leaps, whatever, frappes, it needs to come from here, okay? It doesn't come to the side of the room, because when that happens, my hips are now angled to the corner, and I can feel that pressure in my knee, I can feel it in my ankle, and my foot is starting to roll in on my arch. I don't want that. So go to your natural second right here, okay? Same thing, pressing through the floor with your toes, and then pulling that sand or that towel back in. This one's a little bit different. Still try to lead with the heel, and then pulling back with the toes. Lead with the heel, pulling back in with the toes. Now derriere is the opposite. So derriere is behind us, devant, also gone derriere. So derriere, what I want you to work on, if you are fairly new to ballet or it's been a while, I want you to try to imagine that there is a ruler that's going straight back, and you want to keep that toe in line with that ruler. You don't want it out here. We don't want it to an angle, because if you are training your tendus and your dégagés, whatever here, once you do a leap, that's what's going to happen. Your battements, your leaps, everything are going to end up to that side. So the first thing I want you to do is work on getting it behind you. Your goal from fifth position is to line it up with your heel. So wherever your front heel is, your goal is to get it there. So your point should be directly behind. So if I had a ruler and I lined it up with my supporting heel and I went straight back, that's where your toe should be. And you want to train that so that your lead to your bottom, anything derriere, remains there. That's where your training comes from. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to first position. I want you to not lead with your heel. I want you to lead with your toe. So think about leading, not more like this part of your foot, because if you just lead with your toe, that's gonna be all wonky. But think about leading with the ball of your foot. That will keep your turnout. And then you're going to lead, coming back in, with your heel. And that will keep your turnout. Okay, so pressing back with the ball of your foot, and then leading in with your heel. However, don't do it so much that you're dragging your arch in, okay? So going derriere is a little bit, you need to shake your spring foot out, that's fine. Doing a lot of stuff on one leg. When we go derriere, obviously we cannot keep the ball of our foot and all of our toes completely on the ground. So you are naturally going to rotate onto this front part of the ball of your foot, your big toe, and then your big toe is going to be the one that has that lovely point in the back. Everything is lifted here. Remember the weight on the ball of your foot. Make sure you don't take your body back, that your weight's on your heel. So make sure everything is still up and lifted. So from here, coming back in, I'm going to press my big toe into the ground, get my other toes in there as quickly as I can, get the ball of my foot in, and then last is my heel and that flexing of the ankle. Same thing can happen here as we get in that habit of forgetting better ankle and then the knee bends, okay? So let's just do 4 on quad. We're gonna do 4 front, 4 side, 4 back, 4 side, all right? Ready? 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 side. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and derriere 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 to the side. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Were you working all those muscles, working your leg, working your foot, lifting up through the knee? We're going to do it one more time and then we'll be done. This time I want you to work on the accent. So remember in the beginning I said I like to have my accent as out, because that is going to train my leg on the outward motion of any bigger exercise that I'm going to be lifting my leg, okay? So that's really what I want to focus on here. So I want you to do, on the counts, I want you to be out as long as possible and then do a quick in. So out as long as possible, do a quick in. Ready? 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the side. 5, 6, 7. Lengthen back. 1, 2. Lengthen. 3 and 4. Second. 6, 7, and 8. And finish. And we are done with Tendus. I know that was a lot of information about something that may seem like a very small exercise, but it has a lot of significance with the rest of your dancing. So next time we'll talk about dégagés, and hopefully that one won't be as long, because a lot of the things that we do in Tendus are the same as dégagés, but the accent is different and the purpose that you are squeezing, what you're doing, is a little bit different now to train your body a different way. So we'll see you again next time. Thank you for joining me.